Welcome to What Lies Ahead. I'm your host, Chris Raffini, lead singer of the Long Island band Overthrow. On my podcast, I explore everything related to the hardcore scene through the eyes of artists, promoters, and record labels. As always, please like and or subscribe on all social media platforms. Today, I have Matt Rienecker, the bassist of the dynamic Long Island band Standstill. Last year, they released their highly anticipated debut LP, Steps Ascending on Days, a project that's been making waves with its raw energy and introspective sound. Matt is also involved in another project, Humankind, which we'll absolutely talk about. We'll also get into his musical origins, the evolution of Standstill, and what's next for both of his bands, as well as his job as one of the production heads at the Paramount. Matt, thanks for being on the show, man. What's going on?
What's up, man? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, excited to have you on for sure. And when I started this podcast, Standstill was a band I definitely wanted on here. I've been a fan of you guys. You've released a bunch of different EPs. You released your album last year on Days in June. We're getting close to a year by the time this comes out, which is actually crazy. Feels like it
Yeah,
just dropped.
yeah.
But like always, though, how I want to start, man, is let's talk a little bit about what led you into hardcore, but when your first recollection of actually getting into music, and then what built from there when you ended up getting going to shows and how Standstill formed.
Cool. Yeah. I could do a pretty long, detailed story, but I'll try and keep it as quick and brief as I can. Born and raised in Lindenhurst. My first place where I lived was closer to North Lindenhurst, kind of by like where, honestly, like smack dab in between where the PWAC used to be, right near like the PWAC and William Raw Elementary School. That's my first household. Growing up under my like kind of grandma-in-law. I think it's like my mom's brother's wife's grandma, so it's not my blood related grandma, but I grew up in the basement over there. And yeah, my parents generally Metallica household. We loved Metallica. My dad leaning more towards like the heavier bands like Megadeth, Led Zeppelin, uh Iron Maiden, Slayer, Pantera, some Southern rock classics like Leonard Skinner and Molly Hatchet, a lot of Jimi Hendrix, and then my mom um kind of lent towards more like yacht rock in a way, or just like more classics like Prince, Tears for Fears, um Genesis, and like every like solo group that came of Genesis, like I guess Phil Collins, Peter Gabriel. um yeah, and yeah, basically that was, I guess, like the first intro to music that I had, being exposed to music like that. And then I want to say until I started grade school, I moved a little bit south of Lindenhurst, right by you know where Tang's Chinese food place is? You ever hear of that? Like the Green
Mhm.
Restaurant on Sunrise Highway.
Yep.
I moved down the block there in my actual blood related grandmother's house. So we moved there, and I spent like most of my grade school years over there. And then amongst growing up over there, my my mother's sister was my babysitter, which I think she grew up in like Amity. She was not grew up. She lived um, in like Amityville, Babylon, bounced around within Lindenhurst. But I ended up. She was my babysitter, but I spent most of my time with my cousin Bryn, and he exposed me to like all of like the like alternative like classics, or like like Warped Tour bands. Like he showed me Sum 41, Taking Back Sunday, Blink-182, like stuff like Jack's Mannequin, and like all new metal classics like Rage Against the Machine, Limp Bizkit, Korn, like everything under the sun of like bigger fest bands or like Warped Tour bands. Um, yeah, and also like I think growing up, I was trying to think about this today. Like I think we had like a PS2. When my aunt would watch me, we would just play PlayStation 2, and we had a PS2 without a memory card in it, so we would like be so dedicated to beating video games in one night at a clip, and we would be playing video games like, Tony Hawk Pro Skater, all like the extreme sport games, like, all the BMX games, like Grand Theft Auto 2. So like all the soundtracks of those video games, like brought me to bands like Melancholy, Bad Religion, all of that. So when I was like earlier on in my like grade school years, because my cousin Bryn, I just got exposed to all of that. And that was like me in grade school, like I said. And then um fast forward a little bit, I moved two houses down, so I still lived on Delaware Avenue where Tank's Chinese food place was. Um, I started going to middle school. I started getting like kind of like a tight circle of friends, you know. So I started, sorry, in grade school I started playing trombone. So I started like learning how to like read, write music, and like learn about like music theory and stuff like that. Not until middle school, I started like taking my music interest and like finding like a solid like-minded group of friends who so happened to like have instruments at their disposal, and they were just like jamming, doing whatever, you know, like on our spare time. And I ended up, kind of just being aligned with the bass because I was like, oh, it's kind of like trombone, how like you
Hmm.
read and understand the music as far as like reading it in a bass clef and whatever. I think I'm correct with that. But yeah, so um found like a circle of friends that I grew up with in middle school where I really started like jamming, and then it branched off into different outfits of different music. I kind of like, we stemmed from like, playing Rage Against the Machine covers and like Metallica covers to like starting our own bands that would play local shows. Um, you know, like before I really knew what hardcore was or what the scene was, I would play like Battle of the Bands and stuff, like at like Revolution. I don't know what they were specifically called. I think they were for like Bamboozle Fest or something like that was like the grand prize or whatever. But we would kind of like we would start getting exposed to like people around like the local scene and bands that were doing it like really quickly because we would be playing with like 10, 12 bands a night of like random local Long Island bands. And then yeah, by association, I was from Lindenhurst, so by association, I would always like kind of see um like people who graduated before me or after me like in their own like versions of hardcore bands. Like you had like Brian Natoli, who is in Standstill now, who's one of my good friends. Um, Mike Smith, Dave Anderhar, like, and the list goes on with like just the hardcore kids in Lindenhurst that were starting their own band. So I would like see them playing shows while I'm playing shows in middle school. And like not re like I wasn't honestly like throughout my whole school career, I wasn't really good friends with like the people that I see and like I'm in bands with today
Hmm.
on Long Island. But I would always see them playing shows and respect them because I was just like, yeah, that's what I do, or like that's what I try and do. And yeah, so that's I think we're at middle school now. And then within middle school, I started going to my like first shows at the Moose Lodge in Lindenhurst.
Oh, yeah.
If you
Okay.
if you ever been there?
Hmm.
Have you ever been there?
Hmm. Yes.
Oh, word. Yeah, so like I would see Stand Your Ground shows, which Stand Your Ground was like Mike Smith from Pain of Truth, my friend Ryan Meehan, who played in bands with Mike Smith all the time, Brian Atoli, who plays in Stancil with me now, and my friends Carl and like X, Y, and Z. Um, you know, so my first hardcore shows or my first shows in general were just seeing like local bands like Stand Your Ground and stuff play like the Moose Lodge with like bands like Kills and Thrills and like Survivors Guild. I want to say those were the bands that they played with, or like the one or two shows that I saw at the Moose Lodge. Um, yeah, so that was like me first being exposed to shows or hardcore in middle school, amongst playing the local shows that I played with like my new metal, rap metal bands, you know. Yeah. So me in middle school was like a person who kind of just like dabbled in like every genre amongst what my parents showed me, what my cousins showed me, what I played, what my friends showed me. Um fast forward to high school, I want to say it was like sophomore year. I mentioned my friend Dave Andahar, who was also in the concert band. I think um, my main moment where I really got into, like, passionately got into specifically hardcore and started listening to hardcore in general was when I was doing, I want to say it was like the spring concert or something like that. And it was shortly after, I want to say, the Crusades record release or some Incendiary record release. It would probably be around like 2010 to like 2011. Um, it was like the weekend after the record release because when I was in the concert band, like getting ready for like whatever the concert was, playing trombone, the drummer or like a person on the drum line in the concert band was Dave Anderhar, which is a person who played in like bands with Mike Smith, Brian, Ryan,
Mhm.
all my like friends that I still see today from Lindenhurst that play in bands. He was like, "Yo, just went to this record release for this band Incendiary. You would love it because you like play all that kind of music, so you should try and check this out." And he took like the aux cord from my band teacher and he just like played the set or whatever because there was like a video that just went up like that week, like right after the show, and I was just like, this is really cool. And like I like dabbled in like hardcore bands or like bands that you would consider adjacent to hardcore. Like I would listen to like Straight from the Path, um, and bands like that. I would I liked E-Town briefly and like Turnstile because they kind of like aligned with like the music that I was playing, which was just like generally like new metal. Um, But yeah, so at that moment, which was like my sophomore year, I found out about Incendiary, which then like led me to bands like Backtrack, which like I said by association, I knew about Backtrack because I would see Backtrack stickers like posted on like lockers and
Yeah.
um like Backtrack flyers. We had a bulletin board. I played football, so I worked out a lot. We had a bulletin board right outside of the weight room, and there would just be flyers that would be like stand your
Mhm.
ground flyers or Backtrack flyers. And it's obviously like, Mike Smith and like that whole circle of friends just kind of like posting flyers everywhere. And I'd be
Mhm.
like, oh, I see that, I see that, I see that, like that band, that band, that band. And then listen to Incendiary, really started listening to bands like Backtrack, Trapped Under Ice, like all those bands that were touring all the time together during that period of hardcore. Um, yeah, so that was me in sophomore year. Started listening throughout high school. Um, I think not until shortly after I graduated. Actually, no, my senior year or my summer leading into senior year, my new metal band, which was just like a rap metal band, it was
Mhm.
very fun at the time, played a backyard show in Lindenhurst with Numbskull, which is like kind of like the same members of Stand Your Ground, but it was like the first, like, I think Michael played guitar in Stand Your Ground, and Numbskull was like the first band he sang in, which was like, I think it was him, Danny Smith, who sings in Humankind now, his older brother. Um, Brian played guitar, like Brian from Standstill played guitar in Numbskull. Ryan, me and one of my best friends, which was the singer in my first hardcore band, played drums. And like we played this backyard show that was like 100 kids in the backyard. And it was like my first real like hangout with like my
Mhm.
now wholesome friend group in hardcore from my town. And that was me before, I think they were like their first summer after they graduated high school, and it was like before my senior year. Um, yeah, and we became like associated or like we knew of each other very well from there. It was the first time we were hanging out, talking to each other, and then like, did my senior year of high school. And then shortly after that, um, I think I went to like a local show upstate New York at Oneonta where um, Brian and two of the other members of Standstill were in a melodic band called Discolor. They played a house show with Hangman, which was like kind of like a pre-show before Hangman played with Knocked Loose the next day on like the Oneonta campus. I'm skipping a lot of moments. Sorry, I'm
Mhm.
just trying to like do like the main
Going,
things
man.
here. But
Going.
at that show, it was like at the house show before the main show on the campus, like the next day, we went there and I remember hanging outside and in that moment, when I was hanging outside. It was me next to Brian Natoli, and he was kind of like, he just started like talking to me randomly, and he was just like, "Yo, it's cool that like you're still like doing the music thing and you're working at all these venues and stuff like that. Like, and we're all from like Lindenhurst. Like, that's a cool thing, man." And I was like, all right, word. And then in that conversation, he was like, do you want to start a hardcore band with me and my friends? And I was like, cool. And that was like my first. So yeah, sorry. I was actually there at that house show because I was just randomly playing in my like a band um that like randomly asked me to play like last minute. It was my first time ever playing a hardcore set like ever, which was like fresh out of high school in Oneonta. Played the show with Discolor and everyone else, and then like Brian approached me after the set or whatever and was just like, do you want to start a hardcore band? Like just a bunch of Lindenhurst kids. Like, I want to incorporate you because you're from Lindenhurst and you're doing a bunch of stuff with the music. And I was like, cool, you know? And
Yeah.
yeah, I guess I'll stop there because that's kind of how I got into hardcore. Yeah.
But it's awesome, and you hear the progression, and you started young. Like you think about it, you grew up with your family listening to metal,
Hmm.
and then '80s style music. And by the way, like all those bands you mentioned, I was into in the beginning,
Yeah.
same year.
Yeah.
So it was great, and then it kind of built and led into different bands, and then going to shows, and then this friend group that you have. That for someone like me, I said this to Jay from Last Laugh. That
Actually, to stop you there,
yeah, go ahead.
I drove to that show. Um, I drove to that show in Oneonta with Jay from Last Laugh.
Oh, okay.
And we were like kind of new, we were like newly friends at the time. And this is like, like I said, fresh out of high school. I don't know how old Jay is or like what year he graduated, but to also like expand on how I got into hardcore, like I was still, from like listening to metal bands and stuff that my dad gave me, I like branched off of that and I was playing a bunch of video games that had like Pandora and like Last FM that you were able to like stream music from. So I put on like Metallica and whatnot, and then I would find like Lamb of God, Slipknot, all these other heavier bands, and then like loved those bands. And then not until like freshly out of high school, I saw Slipknot at Jones Beach Amphitheater with Lamb of God, and I was like, gotta go to this. This is awesome.
Mhm.
Um, big concert, whatever. I was moshing like a lunatic, and then I pissed a few people off while I was moshing to like what I was like kind of like accustomed to what moshing was as far as like, me being a younger kid, like going to hardcore shows. Pissed a few like bros off in the pit, and then I look to my right and I see this like young kid in a backtrack shirt, which was Jay. And I was like, yo, what's up? Let's hang out because I'm pissing a bunch of people off and you seem cool and you seem like I'm not going to make you mad. And that
Uh-huh.
was, we were probably 18, 19 at the time. And that's where I met him. And then, we started just going to local shows together all the time, me and him. And then he drove me to that show in Oneonta, actually.
That's
Jay
cool.
from
See,
Last Laugh.
Jay from Let's Laugh. Yeah, and he's yeah,
Yeah.
he's the man. And like had him on, and just like what I said to him, I'm gonna say to you, it's just clear as day with all the bands now from the last 5 to 8 years. Clear like brotherhood that you guys have. It's
Yeah.
very very obvious, and it's nice to see.
Yeah.
It's all
I've known
awesome.
Matt Spataro from Last Laugh since I was like 14. And then
Yeah,
turns out I just see him every day, like all the time, at least every weekend now. It's so crazy. Long Island's
crazy.
such a small island, but it's
It
so
is.
awesome.
It is as big as it is. It's small, but and
Yeah.
so all these things led into obviously Standstill forming. And I want to talk a little bit about Standstill in terms of your writing process. And you guys like really just took right off. You really,
Hmm.
really did. And because you're really good, and the shit you puts
Thank
out
you.
kills. So it does. So that there's taking off, but the taking off because you guys, what you're doing is awesome. So talk a little bit about like your writing process because I hear you guys. You hear this. It's fast. You have some moshy parts in
Hmm.
there. It's I think I even told you at the Silent Majority show we were talking the other day, and like Dust, even Dust towards the end, um, it reminds me of like Sunny Day Real Estate at the ending.
Yeah.
That ending
Yeah.
part. It was like it really did in an amazing way, but with your own style. So you guys have all these sounds. You put them together. The recording's great. It really captures you guys. It almost is like it's a great professional sound, but live sound almost, which doesn't lose the essence of you guys. But talk to me about like your writing process when you guys are writing songs. Does someone come in with a full song and then you guys kind of all collaborate and clean, like clean it up or work on it? How does that work in terms of the songs? Does someone have a riff and then you build it from there?
Steve and Brian both bring like the guitar players, Steve
Hmm.
Hollum and Brian Natoli, who I've been talking about, Brian from Lindenhurst.
Hmm.
Um, they both come into the practice space with like kind of bare bones, like skeletons of songs,
Okay.
and we all together kind of make those like bare bone structures into like full fleshed out songs. And then generally, no one really kind of like tells me what to do because for the most part, I'm just kind of like following what the guitar does and then bridging the gap between the drums and the guitar. So while mostly we're like fleshing out these songs and making them into songs, we're like, you know, working with Andre and a bunch of stuff, even though he basically creates all of his parts on his own as well. We work on that, and then I'm like standing in the corner, kind of like doing whatever I'm doing, and they all trust me, and they're all like, whatever you do is going to be cool anyway.
Hmm.
So yeah, for the generally speaking, guitar players bring in bare bone structures, and then we all make them into like full fleshed out songs together. And then Jerry just locks himself in a room like a month before we record, and he just writes the whole record out, or like writes song for song, maybe like 1 or 2 days at a clip. And we trust him, and it always comes out awesome. Um, but yeah, we take all of our influences and we kind of just really run with them, and pay tribute to just the bands that like changed our lives within the years of going to shows. Yeah, Brian and
Yeah.
Steve and Andre. Do you want? Yeah, sorry.
No, go, go, go.
I'll leave there. I was going to talk about how we formed because I was already talking about it previously.
Yeah, go ahead.
That band Discolor, who played that show in Oneonta, was Andre the drummer, Steve the guitar player, and Brian the guitar player, with two other friends of theirs from Smithtown. Um, the band that Brian asked me to be in at that Oneonta show was me, him, and all of our friends from Lindenhurst, which at a point, Discolor kind of just like fizzled out, and they I think Steve played guitar and sang at the time, and they kind of had more riffs like ready to go, and they were like consistently writing, which was like ended up being like the first EP for Standstill. So they were like, let's make a new band. Steve was like, I don't want to sing again. I'll just play guitar in this one, And then this was while during 2020, so we had a lot of time on our hands. So they had, I want to say like 7 or 8 songs, like kind of like almost ready to go. And then I got the call from Brian saying like, hey, we're starting this other band that kind of sounds like, just typical Long Island shit. So if you want to come down, we've been practicing like right down the block from you. So come through. And then um, I practiced with them like a few times. I started like, getting like really caught up with all the stuff that they already had written. And I just put my like spin on it as far
Hmm.
as like me writing my bass parts. And then they really didn't have anyone in mind for vocals, so um I ended up I was I was hanging out and playing video games with Jerry a lot at the time during 2020, and I knew he had like versions of like emo bands that, or he had like solo stuff that he put out that was like generally like melodic like emo stuff, so I knew he was able to like kind of like sing, not just like front the hardcore band, which is what he was doing at the time when I met him. So I thought to call him because I was like, he's an awesome front man. He's like a young kid who just like goes crazy, and I know he can actually sing. So like, might as well just see if he wants to come hang out. And I called him, and I think like a half an hour later, he just showed up at practice after like a few practices of them just being like, we don't know what to do, we don't know what to do. And I'm like, I have a kid that would be
Hmm.
cool for this. So I called Jerry, and he just shows up, and then at that time, Jerry like popped in, and I popped in when they had like 7 or 8 songs done, which turned
Wow.
into the 9 songs that were the first 2 EPs for
Okay.
Standstill, which is kind of like why this bleeds into like our writing process because I joined when like they basically had the first 2 EPs almost written, and I just wrote all the bass parts, and then Jerry came in and wrote all 9 songs
How
on
fit now?
on
How long
vocals.
did it take him to, like how you described a little few moments ago? he just takes a month or two. He collects every thoughts, then hears the songs, writes the lyrics over them, and then he goes from there with those and
Uh,
others.
yeah, but I mean, we like I said, it was 2020, so we really like had so much time on our hands. But
Yeah.
yeah, he just locked himself in a room for a few weeks and just wrote all nine songs, and we recorded all nine of them at the same time.
Okay.
Um, and we had like a few game plans here and there, but it ended up just like naturally turning into a thing where we're like, we're gonna put five songs on this EP. Uh, five, I can't even think of it right now. We have five songs on the first EP. Sorry.
Thought you did.
Um, wow, I gotta like look at it right now. Sorry. Yeah, so we put the first five and oh, so we yeah, all right. So it was eight songs that we recorded. Never mind, I remember now. It was nine songs. We put one song which was featuring Danny Smith, who ended up singing to Humankind in the long run
Okay.
after the fact. We put that one song on a compilation that benefited AMH at the time because they were closed down during 2020, and we wanted to like, it was a good opportunity for us to like launch the band early. So we put that one song on that compilation, and then we threw the other eight songs into two separate EPs, and we kind of just like, mapped it out where it was like, you know, um, minor and major key songs that like kind of like existed together nicely. So we
Hmm.
put five on the first EP, three on the other EP. And that's how like the first, you know, opportunity to like write together kind of went along. And then, the other LP songs were just us, like I said, two guitarists coming into a room, just bringing bare bones like songs in, and then us like all working on them together, making them into like actual songs.
Cool.
So
So
that's
no,
generally how it
that's
is.
cool. Like how it happens, and it's moved. Think about it fast. 2020 does feel like a long time ago, but it really wasn't. But it does, right?
Yeah.
So, but how did you? Because then let's talk the LP. That you just put out last June. Um,
Hmm.
like I said in the beginning, it's crazy we're approaching a year on that. Um, were there any songs that didn't make the LP, and how did you
Hmm.
guys structure the album track list in terms of the
Yeah.
order? You're like, huh, okay, this is a good one to start it off with.
Let me think. Um, yeah, I don't think we started tracking it until I want to say it was like 2022 or 2023. I remember it was shortly after we did the West Coast for the first time with Life's Question and Gag. We like literally like got off the plane, had like 12 hours to ourselves, and then just drove to Connecticut. But yeah, I think we were planning an LP, and at that point we were like, let's try and aim for like 10 to 12 songs. Therefore, we were like, if we want 10 to 12 songs, we have to really grind it out and come into the studio with like 15 to 18 songs.
Mhm.
Just so we have stuff to work with. Um, we did as much as we could, wrote as much as we could. Um, I think we ended up coming into the studio with like 15 or 16 songs. Some being fully done, some being way far from done. But we had like I think literally I'm trying to think, sorry. I think after the West Coast we came in, we did like a week of pre-pro. Sorry, no, we did a week of pre-pro like before like the year. I think we did the West Coast in February, and I think like towards the end of 2022, um, we did a week of pre-pro. So we were just sitting there in Connecticut in a room, and we were just jamming like 10 to 12 hours a day for like 5 to 7 days straight.
Mhm.
With the producer, also Lumpy was there, like who runs days for most of the days. That we were there. And then like I think we had our Greg and Chris Teddy was also there too. So the main producer and then the engineer, we had all three of them there, just kind of like watching over us and like live tracking us as we're going through stuff. And we kind of like got through full songs, bare bones songs. We kind of like wrote then and there, and then we pre-pro'd out 13 songs out of the 18, 16 or 15 that we had. So immediately two got knocked off, and then we ended up pre-proing out 13 songs. And then from there, we were like, how much time do we have? What are the good songs? What songs can we save? What songs will be better if we work on them for longer? And then it just, long story long, it just ended up being 11 songs that we actually tracked. And then um, we just like at the 11th hour, we're like, all right, the LP is going to be 10 songs because this is just like as strong as I think we can get it at this point, you know?
Okay.
And then, yeah, like Jerry was a big help with the track, all kind of like pitched in. A lot of our favorite songs, we just knew we wanted to have um, like kind of show up later in the record. We didn't want it to be like too front loaded. We knew Dust. I think Dust was the fifth song. We knew Dust was kind of like a completely different kind of song. So we knew that was kind of like the A side, like end, before you flip the
Yep.
record. So that's why we had the Dust, but that's why we had Dust as the fifth song. And then like immediately we just thought like we know the score was just kind of like telling a new story. So once you flip the record to the B side, we wanted that to work out. And then Fourth Wall was immediately like written as a closer because if you listen to the record all the way through, Fourth Wall just kind of has that really long outro. So we were like, that's going to be the end. And, little things like that is kind of how we mapped out the track listing.
Yeah, it's important, and I actually it's perfect the way you guys, in my opinion, at least the way you guys set up the track list. You could see that, and it's cool to hear your process in terms of how look you went in with essentially almost 18 songs and filtered down to 10. Did you guys
Mhm.
ever play any of those songs live prior, or everything was just more studio based in terms of how you set?
I think at the first Silent Majority show that we played We Know the Score, and we were like testing songs out here and there. At that one benefit at the same venue, the Massapequa VFW Hall, we played a benefit for our friend Kyle.
Hmm.
We played Dying Light there, and it was just awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah, like I think literally like months before even like tracking them, like after we had them pre-prod and like kind of like recorded as like live songs, we were like testing them out and just kind of like seeing it, and it was awesome. Yeah,
cool.
basically it.
Next question is, kind of talking about your live show now, which is super energetic. It really is. You guys have a great live show. There's a lot of energy there, which is like honestly, when you see a band, that's what you want to see when a band's doing that. How do you structure your set list now? Because now you have some releases. You have a couple of EPs. You have the LP that's been out for a little while that people clearly know. Um,
Yeah.
how do you structure the set list, and what are some of your favorite songs that you play
Um,
personally for you?
we all come in with ideas for set lists for the most part. Jerry's pretty good at like mapping out a set list because you also got to think of how demanding the songs are for him and the drummer Andre. So we kind of keep into consideration like what songs are more wordy and exhausting than others. So like which songs would be better in the beginning of the set or the end of the set. But we think like little stupid things like we think about like what song the note ends on would go into like the same note of how another
Mhm.
song starts. But yeah, that's basically it. And then we like kind of map it out. We're like, we'll start out with three songs here and whatnot. Yeah. Yeah, generally speaking, like when we were just so used to having only like 5 to 8 songs to
Yeah.
work with, and we would just be playing like 6 song sets for like years. Not up until this like last year we really started playing like, 8 to 11 songs on tour.
Right.
But yeah, we kind of saw and felt out which songs kind of bled into one another. Like, well, we started incorporating like tracks since the record release. The drummer, I think we saw Soulblind use like one of those like drum like rolling track pads to like do like super like melodic intro sorry, transitional like tracks and samples and stuff like that. That sounded really cool. So Andre like saw that and wanted to do it. And
Mhm.
Jerry produces his own beats and he does like DJ sets here and there. So he made a few tracks that were in the same key as the song that was going to start next. So up until like the record release with Capitol, we started incorporating like these like one these like 2 to 4 tracks where it would just like transition into the key of the next song like really well. So that's how we really
It's
map
cool.
out set lists.
Is there songs that you wish you'd play more live that you really haven't been?
Um, we haven't played Fourth Wall or Gridlock ever yet. Um,
Hmm. Really? Oh
and
wow.
honestly, like we're going to rehearsal tonight, or
Hmm.
we're practicing tonight because we want to start incorporating new songs for the Static Dress and Soul Blind run because it's going to be a lot of new faces. So yeah, we plan on playing those songs soon. Um, yeah, you mentioned what songs are my favorite songs to play.
Yeah.
My favorite songs to play are Dying Light and Id. Those are the two bangers in my opinion.
Good ones. Those are
Yeah.
real good ones. Yeah. And it's nice. Yeah. And right. Like you said, you have like a little bit of a catalog now you can choose from. Another thing I love that you guys do is the videos you guys make. They're really
Hmm.
cool. Like, and there's a few like satellites and like in my blood, you have all the guys we were talking about earlier before essentially in that video. So,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm watching. I'm like, oh, yeah. It's familiar faces in there. So, talk about the ideas for some of your videos and how they came about. Like specifically like in my blood, like how did you that song, you're like, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to be in a room. We're going to have everybody in there, and we're just going to go
Yeah.
off the entire time.
Sick. Yeah, if we're talking about In My Blood and like Dying Light specifically, us and Days were talking for a while about like the rollout and which songs were going to be the singles. And then we talked about one song just being like a cool visual jam thing. And then Jerry incorporated an idea of just having it be like essentially like a super low production, like in your face live set. And we knew that the singles were gonna be Dying Light and In My Blood. And Jerry was like, if we can make In My Blood that song, because In My Blood's about, going to shows and getting into music, I would like that to be like the more like in your face, people surrounding, like going crazy, like
Makes
live
sense.
set vibe.
Makes sense for that the tone of that song too. The video completely fits that song.
Yeah. So we had our ideas. Tom Flynn was the director for Loose Ends, the single that we put out for the second EP, and he did that, which he also directed Dying Light and In My Blood. Um, Tom Flynn's a guy who worked with a bunch of people that I work with doing shows and whatnot, so I've known him for a while. And trying to make this long story short, I used to work at Revolution Music Hall, and he was shooting a music video next door, and it was a really windy day out. Um, and he was so nice about it, and so was I. But like, he opened a door on accident, and the wind took it and like took my mirror off of my mom's car.
Oh,
And this was like 5 years before I call him for the Loose Ends music video, and we got into this like nice guy like debacle where we were just like, dude, don't worry about it, man. He's like, oh man, I really want to help you out. I feel really bad. And I was like, nah, like I'll call you if I ever need a favor for a music video or something. And like 5 or 6 years later, um, did you're having Nick from God's Eyes on?
yeah.
Or
Yeah, that's coming out. By the time this comes out, that will be out already. Yeah.
Gotcha. So he was filming a God's Eyes music video, Tom
Okay.
Flynn, at like in that moment. And then I
Oh,
I call Nick, who's one of my friends that I still talk to
mhm.
like briefly here and there, and I called him 5, 6 years later and I was like, yo, Nick, can you tell Tom Flynn to remind him about that moment and ask if he would so kindly want to do a music video for like a punk band's budget? You know what I mean? Um, he, he's awesome, and he helped us out a lot in that moment. And then that's the reason why we worked with him for Loose Ends. And then moving on from there, we had, an LP, we had a budget, and we wanted to work with him again because he just killed it and he made it so easy on the Loose Ends video that he was able to like, do it again for 2 music videos. And Dying Light, to talk about why we chose the music videos to be those music videos. Dying Light wanted to, we wanted it to just be like a really crazy, like kind of like high production, if you want to call it that, like a high production quality like music video. Um, I work that it was filmed at the Paramount on Long Island.
Okay.
Um, you know, at that time, I've probably been working there for 7 years now. So I have all this gear at my disposal and they're able to help me out. So us and Tom Flynn went there and we filmed the music video there and just like had all my friends who I work with at the venue kind of like come in and help me out because they're awesome. Do the B-roll on like the video wall and like do all the lighting and like have fun for like a good like 14-hour day. And we just like killed it. And then the Dying Light music video ended up like the way it was, where we kind of like, doing a bit of a head nod towards like the Refused music video for New Noise. Um, we wanted it was my idea for like the B-roll to be like my friend Anthony running because of the like I wanted it to be kind of like resemble like the album art cover because the album art cover is like our friend Little Joe running across the record. So we were like, all right, let's just do us jamming and then just have the B-roll just be our friend just running around like crazy, And then
Mhm.
yeah, it turned out to be that. And then yeah, next was the In My Blood video shoot, which it was mainly Jerry's idea, where he was like, I wanted to just be a live set and I want to have like all of our friends just like jumping all over me and it just be insane, which and then ended up coming out perfect in our vision. Tom Flynn took our vision and really like made it awesome.
How long
Um,
did it take to shoot that video?
the In My Blood video,
Yeah.
4 hours, not even like
So it moved
two,
actually pretty quick, right? So yeah.
2 to 3 hours. Yeah. Um,
Where'd you film that, by the way?
in Chris Smith's living room.
That's that's the
So
house. Yeah, yeah.
we during the tracking of the record, we were in Connecticut tracking and we heard like a day or two earlier while we were in the studio that Taking Back Sunday was going to do that backyard show there at his house, like to film their music video there. So we were sitting there like, how do we get there? Let's get over there really quick. So while we were recording, we all went to see that and it was awesome and it was crazy. So obviously that inspired us to do it at his house, but we wanted to not do the exact same thing that Taking Back Sunday did. I call Chris Smith at like 2 a.m. He answers.
Hmm.
It was like 2 a.m. on a Tuesday, and I'm like, yo, we want to do a music video. We want to do a live set. We want all of our friends to be there. We want it to be crazy. Can we do it at your house, like the Taking Back Sunday music video shoot? And he was like, hell yeah. And he was like, here's the next thing. Instead of your backyard, can we do it in your living room? And he was like, hell yeah, man, of course. And I was like, all right, done deal. And then yeah, that's how it turned out. It was really cool. We just put backline, cleared all the couches out, put it like in his bedroom, and then
Yeah,
we like blocked all the windows off and like did like some minor lighting so we can like make it look blue like the record cover. Like if you look at the In My Blood music video, it's kind of all like shaded in blue.
yeah, yeah. It is.
Um, and yeah, it was nuts. Chris Smith's just like begging me to stop jumping because the floor is just like like just moving. Yeah, it was awesome. We really wanted to just be like a hangout live set, and it was so cool. We texted everyone like 2 days before or the day of, just like, does anyone want to be an extra and just come out and like watch us play a set? We played the song like 8 to 10 times, and then we played a set. Like we actually turned on all the amps and we played like an actual live set of
Oh,
like 4 songs, and it was just insane. And then we just did as much footage as we could. And yeah, those videos, that was one of the funnest moments like for me with the band was just playing that.
yeah,
Playing a
man. It's super cool.
playing one of my best friends' living rooms.
Yeah. Turns out to be fun. You could tell, like when you watch the video, like you could see obviously how much fun
Yeah.
you and everybody were having. But
Yeah,
I
all my
wanted
friends were just so down. It was so
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a great video, and goes with the song and the other video too is great. The one that you filmed, the Paramount is awesome. Like, kind of borderline left, quick left turn here, and then we'll get into some other pieces. But you do have a new project called
Hmm.
Humankind, right? Which I want to bring up,
Yep.
talk about a little bit. So obviously, Standstill is the main focus, but yeah, this other project, and just from talking to you today on this, you have music has always been with you. You've always had some. sort of band you've always played. So it makes sense that you have another band right now, honestly, that you're starting one. So talk a little bit about Humankind. How did it come about? Is there a plan for release, like a release? And what are you looking to do with Humankind moving forward?
Um, Danny Smith has been one of my closest friends for a very long time, and he's had these songs written for a while, and all these songs are like just all influenced by bands that Danny has shown me and I fell in love with. Bands, bands like Still Suit, Shift,
Hmm.
um, Dag Nasty, Descendants, like all that. So um I knew he had these songs and he's one of my best friends, so I was like, yo, I would love to do this with you. And then he was down and he trusted me and I like tried my best and made the songs as far as the bass goes the best I could. And Jerry's been throughout Standstill we've been like super tight and we're very good at being in a band together, me and Jerry. So Danny immediately was down to have Jerry play the drums. And Joe Rom from Inner Love uh has his own home studio, and he's based out of Amityville, which is like we're all from Lindenhurst, so like it's right there. So we
Right
just
there.
like
Yeah.
real quickly and real conveniently just like banged out all the Humankind songs, and they ended up coming out super sick, and I'm really proud of them. We have one single out right now, and the few shows that we played have been super, super awesome. And we're like kind of getting down to the wire, figuring out how to get the EP out. So as far as Humankind goes, the EP will be out very, very soon,
Cool.
probably within a month or two.
Okay. So maybe
And
around the time this comes out, or after.
yeah, yeah, no, it should be out by the time this episode's out. And
Okay.
yeah, they're awesome. It's like it's 6 songs and they're all just like ranging from like so many different like sounds. Like none of the songs sound the same. Like Danny's brain is crazy. I love it.
Fun to
And
play in a band like that, right? 'Cause everything's different.
yeah, yeah. It's just super, super melodic, super yeah, it's just great. And I'm happy how the songs came out and I'm excited to have everyone like, hear them.
Awesome.
So yeah.
Yeah, excited to hear when that comes out, man. Uh,
Yeah.
so another left turn we'll go over a little bit. We kind of talked about a little. You mentioned the little things here and there. You worked at Revolution. You mentioned the Paramount. So
Hmm.
why don't we talk about you specifically with your experience working as a production head at Paramount?
From like how I started or
Yeah,
from
you
what I do
started and
now.
like what you do there. 'Cause you're a big part of the show.
Um,
So yeah, you are. So why don't you talk a little about that?
Thank you.
Hmm.
Um, I started, I got the call from a friend of mine saying that they needed some people to work Stage Revolution when I was uh in that summer where I played that set with Numbskull at that house party that I told you about earlier on in this episode.
Yes.
Um, that summer I got a call to start working at Revolution. So I was probably like 17. Yeah, I was 17. Started working at Revolution. I was working there just picking up shifts, like very minimal amount of shifts for like a couple of years, like 2, 3 years. I ended up starting to work there full time as like the main stage manager uh when I was like 19, 20 years old on. And then I'm trying to think. I'm not like go all over the place because there's so many details. Sorry. Um, they had an in-house promoter, which was Club Loaded, which, if you're from Long Island and you play shows or have gone to shows, you know what Club Loaded is
Yep.
because they ran the Donkey, like all that stuff. They were the in-house promoter there. Um, they ended up doing shows outside of Revolution, which at the time when I was stage managing Revolution, they also booked shows at AMH. They booked shows at Mulcahy's. They booked shows at 89 North. Yeah, basically every venue on Long Island. And the promoter asked me to help run his shows and do stage, do hospitality, like basically do everything for this guy at all the shows outside of Revolution. So because I said yes and did all that for a number of years while I was working at Revolution, I met mostly like, every person involved in these venues. And one thing led to another. And a friend of mine, Fletcher, who did front of house at Paramount, um, saw me work a show at AMH or something like that. And one day he was like, "Hey, we need like a guy to do this at Paramount. Could you come in?" And then like randomly got that cold call and then just ran over to the Paramount that night and started working there and then started picking up shifts there. Yeah. Um, there's so many.
I mean, even go back, like I know you worked
Yeah.
with Anthony Race. You were at Irving
Yeah.
Plaza for
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
little,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, you were telling me that. So Anthony
Yeah.
was telling me that too. Yeah, so you got it right.
So I started working at the Paramount at that time. I think like I was like 20, 21 at the time. And then uh now I'm 30. So I've been working at the Paramount for 10 years now.
Yeah.
From when I was just like balancing out Revolution, working like I had like six production jobs at one point between like working for Club Loaded, running shows for him, picking up shifts here, helping Scanlon out with some shows, helping this person out with some shows, just kind of like saying yes to everything when I was super, super young. Um, Ended up uh working like the main lighting dude at the Paramount ended up leaving there to go work as like a shop manager for a huge production company in the Bronx called AVS, which they provided like lighting for like huge arena shows. They provided like audio for all this stuff. And I ended up being his like number two for a lot of the arena shows that he was prepping and like putting on. So I learned I would say he would be my mentor as far as like me getting into lighting. And then I just started
Mhm.
prepping all these arena shows because he ended up getting like while I was doing like the first arena, which was the Prudential Center at that time, um, he ended up getting a cold call from the tour manager for Billie Eilish, and now he's like one of the main
Wow.
crew people for Billie Eilish.
Wow.
He ended up leaving the shop. I ended up taking over the lighting department for like a year or two and change. I don't even know.
Mhm.
Learned lighting super, super quick. And within that time frame, while I was also balancing out Revolution and all these promoters and then Paramount was like, we need a full-time lighting guy. And this was like 6, 7 years ago. Um, at that point, I stopped really working for AVS full time, quote unquote, and I started working at Paramount full time. And I was their main lighting guy for 6, 7 years now, up until today, which is what I still do.
That's awesome.
Um, After Standstill started, we started touring a lot, and I kind of thought to myself that I needed another like safe avenue of employment because like I don't really make money off the band.
Mhm.
And we started doing a lot at the time, so I was like, all right, let me just load my schedule up with like Paramount and maybe another venue. And I went to go see Thursday at Irving, and I asked Race to get me into the show, and he was like, I'll get you into the show if you give me a copy of your EP. And I was like, all right, cool. I actually have a personal copy of mine, so I'll give you this one. And then like I met up with him. I actually went to the show with Danny Smith and Chris Smith. Um, and we rolled to the show together, and then we met up with another one of the Smith brothers at like a bar like right next door to Irving, and then he met me there, and then I gave him the Standstill EP, and I was like, here's a Standstill EP. Can I have a job? And then Race was like, yeah, man, sure. And he's always looked out for me. He's the best. And I've now worked for Irving Plaza for like 2.5 years, 2 years, 2.5 years. So yeah, now my life has brought me to working at Paramount on Long Island full time, and I take calls from my best friend Ethan and Race now working at the Brooklyn Paramount.
Yep.
They call me in there to work sometimes, so I pick up shifts there. I'm working part time at Irving Plaza, I work at Webster Hall sometimes, but my main house venue is the Paramount. And I've been there for, like I said, 10 years now, and I love it. It's
Awesome.
just me and, 6 to 10 of my friends hanging out 16 hours a day, and tours come and leave happy because it's just a bunch of best friends hanging out, like, and working hard. That's why
Yeah.
the Paramount on Long Island is a really
And
awesome
it
venue.
sounds like you love what you do, and I mean, from here and even from other like conversations you and I've had even prior to this podcast, it sounds like you love what you
Yeah.
do, and it's cool that you get to do it at different venues and places, which is
Yeah.
like even better and makes it like fun,
Yeah.
exciting, different bands that come in that you work with, you know?
Yeah.
And
Now that it's on my mind, because we just like got done with the Silent Majority weekend, and we saw the short VOD set, like, just to talk upon like cool moments and what I got to do. I got to work the first Long Island VOD show in years at Mulcahy's because I worked for that promoter from Club Loaded, and he put on the Live of Agony headliner. I mean, no, it's not video, so I can't even show you the flyer, but it's back there. Um,
okay.
it was a Life of Agony headliner, and then VOD
It
was
was
like
the
direct
LOA VOD
support.
show, right? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
LOA, VOD, Ludacris, and I ended up working with them there, which was like I would benchmark that as like my favorite club loaded thing that I've ever done, was just like being able to be a part of like the first VOD show in like years.
Mhm.
Um, Fun fact about that, we got like $1,000 worth of All American for catering for the entire show, and I like rolled up the All American, and it was just the most craziest scene ever because like that much money in All American goes a very very long way. So we just got these towers of burgers that I just put in my car and just like gave to the entire show. And if you actually look at the VOD Instagram, they launched the Instagram probably only like 3 years ago, something like that. But like one of the first posts was like, VOD on Long Island instead of me eating the All American. I'm the one that like picked up the All American for that show. It's just like cool memories like that. That's super
It's
cool.
cool.
And
It
yeah,
is.
like I was also able to do lights for VOD at the Sick of It All benefit. That whole show, I did lights for every one of those bands.
Oh, cool.
And
That
now
was a
I
good
get to do
show.
lights. I get to do lights for VOD again at Paramount. And it's like a cool thing that I get to like revisit my favorite bands, and also job opportunities have arose. Like I don't really tour as an LD because I like touring and leaving my house specifically to play music. But when it comes down to like bands being my friends, or bands being friends that bands being bands that I like, I will do lights for them. And like a band that I got close to, which I said was like my first entry level like into hardcore, which was Incendiary. Um, they did a Bayside headliner, and I tried so hard and they loved it. And now they pay me and bring me on to like do a lot of their shows that they have enough lighting at the venue to like call for them to like bring me in to do lights, and I'll always say yes to them. And it's so sick that like now like the band that got me into hardcore like lets me do lights for them
Nice, man. That's
whenever.
awesome. Yeah.
And yeah, got to do lights for Pain of Truth. They were my best friends that I went to
Yeah,
fucking
I
high
wanted to
school with.
ask you something because, like I said, this is going to come out, you know, not right now, but when people are listening to this, they're going to be ready to go see you guys with Pain of Truth and
Yeah.
Tsunami at the Paramount. A couple more questions after this, but I do want to ask you. So, you guys are playing that show.
Hmm.
Are you going to be doing double duty that night?
Yeah, definitely.
You are.
I wouldn't I
So
wouldn't I
after you get
wouldn't
off, so who's doing lights for you guys that night?
so like
This weekend.
Standstill plays a lot, like we tour as much as we can. So whenever I am on tour, there's my friend Brandon who wanted to like start learning lighting like earlier on when he started like doing this. He's following the same footsteps that I did. Um a person that taught me how to program lighting is like related to him, and he's like a guy that covers me all the time. So his name's Brandon. He's awesome. Like young enthusiastic kid, and he loves Standstill. He loves Drug Church. He loves like melodic bands. So while we play, this kid, this like 20, I think he's like 22 or 21, this 21, 22-year-old kid's going to do lights for us, and he's going to
Cool.
knock it out of the park because I know he's going to
Awesome.
like care about it. And then in return, like I'll let him do Drug Church too. That sounds weird saying I'm going to let him, but Yeah, well, it'll be a good day. Like he'll do lights for us, and then he'll also do lights or haywire because I can't really jump into the saddle like right after the set. But and then he'll do drug church, and then I'll hop in the saddle for Tsunami and Painted Truth, and that'll be awesome because I love the guys in Tsunami, and I grew up with Painted Truth,
Yeah,
and
that's going to be a
I,
super
I
fun
wouldn't
show.
I wouldn't want to let them down.
Nah, it's going to be great. It's going to be a super fun show. So, kind of leads in. We talked about obviously have the Paramount show coming up in this weekend.
Hmm.
Um, well, when the time of this comes out, but
Yeah,
what are future plans for you guys? Obviously you have that. You mentioned the tour that's going to be going on soon. What about new
yeah.
material? And what's the plans looking into the summer?
Um, so at the moment, Brian just got married, so we wanted to get that out of the way. Not out of the way. We wanted to enjoy that moment. Um, so yeah, we all got like a lot of life stuff going on, which has always been the thing for Standstill. Like we're just like as full time as a part-time band can be because we all do a lot outside of music in general. Um, so we have like a lot of stuff going on considering all that, which by the time this episode's out, the Static Dress and Soulblind shows will be over, but I'm really excited for those because when we dropped the LP, we did like 12 shows or like 2 weeks with Soulblind, which all the shows were so insane with just us two. And now we have like a headliner on top of Soulblind and us, which is Static Dress, and they're awesome. I think the drummer saw them play with Under Oath, which is sick. Like those shows will be dope. Like we borderline sold out our Brooklyn show, just us and Soulblind, and we're gonna play Brooklyn with those with Static Dress too. So that show's like near sold out. Um, and we're playing like a short leg with them, and then at the end of April, which will be after this episode will come out, we are doing a Wilkes Bar headliner, which every time we play Wilkes Bar it's insane, and we love it over there. um
Yeah, some Long Island band, like 10 Years Out, and like Dead Shots on that too,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yep.
yeah, we got 10 years out and Deadshot on there. Did you see 10 years? Oh wait, no, you didn't go to the Saturday show of Silent Majority,
I
right?
like them. They're good.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like all like it's like a bunch of local Wilkes Bar bands and then Deadshot and 10 Years Out, which is so awesome that we like it's beyond me that we're headlining it, but like we're headlining with like all of our friends and like Wilkes Bar bands that are still our friends, and it's just
Cool.
so sick. And then honestly, I think this episode might come out right before it, now that I think of it. But then right after that will be the Paramount show, and then we go to Europe for 2 weeks with Painted Truth,
That's gonna be great.
for most of the shows. Like I think we're doing all of our Germany shows, which is like a lot, like a bulk of the tour will be with Painted Truth. Um, and that's gonna be crazy. Like it's gonna be nuts. I expect it to be crazy because like we when we
April.
land, when we land, we play with like a Day to Remember, or and,
Oh
like
wow.
huge bands. Like we're playing with Refused uh at this huge fest called Mainstream right when we get there, and then we get to like spend time with our friends that we grew up with, just playing all these insane shows in Germany and like Prague and Belgium, and yeah, so that's our summer. And then we're kind of figuring out the rest of the year. And then at the end of the year, we're definitely going to do our toy drive that we will now be the fourth annual toy drive, which is so
It's a cool
insane
thing you guys do.
that it's like the fourth year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's cool.
Yeah. So yeah, we're kind of just figuring out the rest of the year, just kind of taking it day by day. Um, those songs that we had left over from the LP will be something that eventually we'll revisit and then expand off of. But other than that, there's no like main uh like actual intention to like write at at the moment. But
Yeah.
we're
Still
excited for a
supporting,
lot right now.
yeah, he's still supporting Steps Ascending. So, no, that's exciting. That's exciting. That's great. And there's a lot of great tours you have, great shows coming up.
Yeah.
Um, no, awesome, man. And then even obviously the experience as a production head, it's just awesome. It's cool if someone hearing that and hearing all the different
Hmm.
experiences you have with that and how it led to everything that you're doing in the different venues is awesome to hear.
Yeah.
But I want to end with here really is just I have a bunch of questions. First thing that comes
Hmm.
to mind, and you say it. Favorite tour that you guys have ever had?
Japan. That's
It
easy.
looked like you had fun on that with the posts that you guys had. That looked like
Yeah,
it was a
yeah.
good
I mean, we just all were like, "What the hell are we doing? This is crazy." Like,
yeah,
how did this take us to Japan? And
cool.
yeah, definitely like the end all be all spot. Like for
Awesome.
us, it was so cool.
You
Yeah.
guys have played with a lot of bands. You're ready to play with a lot of bands. You just mentioned a few, like A Day to Remember,
Hmm.
for example. It's a band you would love to play with that you have not played with yet.
Does it have to be hardcore?
Could be anybody. Hmm.
Rage Against the Machine? I don't know.
Go
Yeah.
back to the beginning, right?
Yeah, yeah, right.
What's the hardest part of touring?
Hardest part of touring, um, um, sleep, but I'm an insane person and I'll just still wake up at 6 a.m. every night and then like have my breakfast and coffee before everyone else does.
Your program,
Um,
right? Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, the hardest part of touring is just kind of like, especially for the way I'm built, is finding a place to sleep because I can't really do air mattresses because I'll just like deflate them. But that's about it. Just the casual, uh, you know, touring struggles,
Right. Favorite part of touring?
meeting people, and playing the shows, obviously,
Hmm.
and the food.
So,
Japan specifically, it was so much food, and it was awesome. And yeah, yeah, that's about it.
cool. Your favorite Long Island venue now?
Sand City.
Kansas City. That is a cool
Yeah.
spot. It really is.
Yeah, it's almost like a cheat code. Like every show that happens there is just so insane, and like the fact that it's like Lindenhurst, like on Wilwood Avenue, like where I grew up, it's just awesome.
Cool.
Yeah.
A Long Island venue that you miss.
I guess I'd have to say Revolution
Yeah.
because I worked there for like 5, 6 years before it closed down. So I miss it a lot.
Yeah. That was a good spot.
Yeah.
Favorite show that you went to?
Favorite show that I went to. Favorite show that I went to. I don't know. That's a hard one. There's so many. I don't know if I can uh stage managing the silent majority shows because I would consider me going to that because it definitely was just like um a mix of like just everything I loved about music just all coming into like one moment, and it was just life changing. So the
Cool.
first silent majority reunions.
Favorite show you played? And it could be there's probably a bunch of them, but favorite show you played, like something that comes to mind, like, wow, that was a great one.
Um, can I say every Long Island show we play? Or no.
Hey, yeah,
Yeah, I love our toy drive every year. It's just like it's like a community event within Lindenhurst. It's just more than just like a local show. It's us and all of our best friends playing. All of our best friends show up. It's free with a toy. It's just like it's at Sand City, and it just like creates this like good vibe of just like everyone's there for a good reason, and it's not just people who go to shows. It's like a mix of like hardcore kids, people from Lindenhurst that just want to pitch in, and it's just this
man.
awesome thing. Very
Right before
awesome
the
thing.
holidays, right? You always do it right.
Yeah.
It's like right before.
Yeah, it's usually like a Saturday before Christmas.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool. What did you listen to last?
I'm gonna go look. uh I was at the gym and I was listening to Twitching Tongues.
Nice. A band or an artist that you like that may surprise people.
Hmm. No, I'm looking at my Spotify for trying to think. I don't know because I feel like I talk about everything I listen to a lot. Um, Jazz is a big thing in my house right now. We listen to a lot of Coltrane and Brubeck
Hmm.
and a lot of jazz right now.
Yeah, your
So
family has a
maybe
big musical background, as you described, with all the bands. All
yeah,
right, last one here, man, and then being a production head or performing.
performing. There's so many times where I'm working like a 16 to 20 hour day, and I'm just like, I wish I was just playing this show, you
Okay.
know?
Like you see it, you're probably like, oh man, I want to be up on stage doing this.
Yeah, yeah. It's just so much better than like sweating. I mean, no, I still sweat when I'm on tour, but you know what I mean? It's just like it's
Absolutely.
playing shows is so much more like rewarding for the soul, you know?
Probably the best release. Like it's just it's amazing. Um, Matt, this was awesome. Appreciate you having you on. Hang tight. I'm just gonna wrap up, then we'll end it off for later. Okay. Thank you for listening to the What Lies Ahead podcast, which is available on all streaming platforms. Go save the What Lies Ahead podcast playlist on Spotify that features all bands that were on the show. For information on future episodes, you can go to my Instagram account and follow at What Lies Ahead _podcast, and on Facebook by searching What Lies Ahead podcast. See you all on the next episode.